Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudihare. Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavatir Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki. Hare Krishna. So we are reading from Canto 3, Chapter 3, The Lord's Pastimes out of Vrindavan. The texts are 11 and 12. So I'll just read the verses. Shambharam dvividambanam muram balvalamevacha anyamscha jantavakragnim avadhit kamscha ghatayat. The virtue word is Shambharam, Sambhara, Dvividam, Dvivida, Banam, Bana, Muram, Mura, Balvalam, Balvala, Evacha, as also, Anyan, others, Cha, also, Dantavakradin, Dantavakra Adin, like Dantavakra and others, Avadit, killed, Kancha, and many others, Ghatayat, caused to be killed. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Of kings like Shambhara, Dvivida, Bana, Mura, Balvala, and many other demons, such as Dantavakra, some he killed himself, and some he caused to be killed by others, Sri Baladeva, etc. Let's also read verse 12. Atate bhratur putranam pakshayo patitan ripan chachala bhu kurukshetram esham apattatam bhalai. Virtual translation. Atha, thereafter, te, your, bhratar putranam, of the nephews, pakshayo, of both sides, patitan, killed, dripan, kings, chachala, shook, bhu, the earth, kurukshetram, the battle of Kurukshetra, yesham, of whom, apat atam, traversing, bhalai, by strength. Translation by His Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada. Then, O Vidura, the Lord caused all the kings, both the enemies and those on the side of your fighting nephews, to be killed in the battle of Kurukshetra. All those kings were so great that the earth seemed to shook as they traversed the war field. Hare Krishna devotees. So this is my first Bhagavatam class once after I'm over here. So I request for all of your prayers and blessings so I can maybe speak something worthwhile. And so your Monday mornings, as yesterday Kalpatara Mataji said, will not be tough to start the Monday mornings. So we'll just discuss some of the demons and their stories that was discussed in the verse 11, Shambhara, Dvivida, Bana, and others. So we can start off with the demon Sambhara. So there was actually a question that I always had, which kind of helped in this preparation was as we know that Krishna expands into first Mahavishnu, and then there is the initial first Chaturviya of Vasudev, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Anirudh. So I always thought Sankarshan is Balaram himself and Vasudev is Krishna himself, but is Pradyumna and Aniruddha of the Chaturviya same as the sons and the grandson of Krishna? So in the Krishna book, Srila Prabhupada writes this Pradyumna, who is the son of Krishna, is actually the incarnation of Cupid god, because Cupid, as we all know, was cursed or was burnt by Lord Shiva in the whole pastime that happened during the wedding of Lord Shiva and Mother Parvati. So then Cupid was burnt, and then he didn't have a body. So he again took the shelter of Pradyumna of the initial Chaturviya, and when it was time again for him to take birth, he took birth through Mother Rukmini as Krishna's son. And Prabhupada specifically writes in Krishna book that this is the verdict of Goswamis, whereas the initial Chaturviya is the Vishnu Tattva, but Cupid, who is one of the demigods, again influence, empowered by Pradyumna, the Chaturvya himself, is Jiva Tattva. So Sambala is actually the demon. Again, why was I telling about Pradyumna is Sambala is the demon that Pradyumna was destined to kill. There was a story where Sambara got to know that Pradyumna is the one, the Krishna's son Pradyumna is the one who would kill him, and then he goes and kidnaps Pradyumna once he takes birth from Dwarka. And as we all know, Rake Krishna Mare Krishna Rakeke. Once Lord Krishna wants to protect somebody, nobody can kill him or her. Whereas when Lord Krishna wants to attack somebody, then there is no way that anybody can protect them. So we actually can, in this discussion, we'll be seeing both the aspects of Rake Krishna Mareke and Mare Krishna Rakeke. So Pradyumna is an example of Rake Krishna Mareke, because Lord Krishna had a specific plan for Pradyumna. So even though Sambara wanted to kill him, that he took him and then threw him into the waters of this huge ocean, he was not killed. It's kind of interesting that he was thrown into the water, and then a huge fish eats him, and then this fish was actually caught by a fisherman, and as destiny would kind of take it, that fish eventually went into the kitchen of the same Sambara demon. So however much he was trying to run away from the death personified in the form of Pradyumna himself was directly came into his home. So he didn't have to actually go anywhere outside of his home to face his death personified. And as Pradyumna reached the kitchen, he was given to Mayavati, who is again the incarnation of Rati Devi, who is the wife of Cupid. And she started taking, and Narad Muni kind of helped her understand who this Pradyumna, the little boy, was, and how she has to help in the overall grand scheme of helping Lord Krishna through his pastimes of killing some of these demons. And Mayavati eventually takes care of Pradyumna. Once he grows big, then when it was actually time for him to understand who are his real parents and what is his actual purpose, that he was actually brought to the kingdom of Sambara, then he understands that, and then there is a whole discussion in Krishna book, a beautiful discussion on how Pradyumna starts fighting with Sambara. In fact, actually, Pradyumna goes and invokes anger in Sambara just through words, because he wanted Sambara to actually come out and then fight. Because most of the times, as we see, when we are in this rage of anger, we don't kind of logically think a lot of things. So Pradyumna kind of used that to his advantage and created this rage in Sambara, and he started fighting Sambara, and then eventually, as it is proclaimed, he killed Sambara. So again, the same point of Rake Krishna Mareke. As much as Sambara wanted to run away from his death, he couldn't. Whatever things that he was doing, Krishna was orchestrating everything that Sambara was trying to do in a way that he was getting closer and closer to the death himself. And once Sambara died, then Mayavati, because she had this great mystic powers, she could take Pradyumna directly to Dwaraka. And once they reached there, because Pradyumna he is the son of Krishna, he had a lot of similar features as Lord Krishna himself. And as everybody, when he directly entered into the interior palace, everybody actually got confused that, oh, is it actually Lord Krishna who came here? And even Rukmini was actually not able to initially identify who was he. And then as everybody were discussing, Lord Krishna himself also comes. And I've actually found it very interesting that it's not that Krishna didn't know who Aniruddha was, or who Pradyumna was, or who Mayavati was, but he actually never spoke a word. He was dead silent in his usual standard self, where he kind of gets involved so much into the past, and that he also started acting, oh, who is this boy? He is very beautiful. Who is this lady? And then Srila Prabhupada in Krishna book writes, because of the desire of Lord Krishna, Narada Muni comes. So Krishna, in a way, as we have seen in this whole chapter, there are many places where in the translations also, just to glorify the devotees, Krishna did something of letting other demons, other skill some of the demons, or kind of giving credit. So Krishna is so expert in giving the credit that he plays the role very well. And in this case, he gave the whole credit to Narad Muni to kind of get glorified and get the whole, maybe kind of getting the whole family together. And Narad Muni comes and kind of explains the whole thing. And that's how Pradyumna gets back into the family. And then, so that's kind of a small discussion about Sambara. And next, actually, we can talk about the demon Bana, who is actually, as we always call, Banasur. So he's actually the son of Bali Maharaj, a glorious lineage. It started from Hiranyakashipu, and then, as we know, then Prahlad Maharaj, and then Bali Maharaj came as his grandson, and then Banasur is actually the son of Bali Maharaj himself. And Srila Prabhupada in Krishna book writes that Banasur was this great devotee of Lord Shiva, and he pleased Lord Shiva in 1,000 arms. And as Lord Shiva is very famous for his Tandava Nitya. Once when Lord Shiva was performing his glorious dance of Tandava, there was Banasur who was playing, using his 1,000 arms and playing the drums so expertly that Lord Shiva was very pleased with him. And he said, Banasur, I'm very pleased with your drum playing that helped me in my Tandava Nitya. I want to give you some boon. And Banasur kind of, I think, is a very intelligent person. He said, he understood the power of Lord Shiva himself, and he said, can you please protect my kingdom from enemies any time that I was trying to attack, anybody who wants to attack. And Banasur is kind of, as we were talking, Sambara was an example of Rake Krishna Mareke, and we'll see how Banasur kind of epitomizes this principle of Mare Krishna Rakeke. If Krishna or Krishna wants to attack you, then there is no power in the entire creation that can actually protect us. And I'll just read something from Krishna book that I found very interesting. It is a discussion between Lord Shiva and Banasur. So Banasur was, because he had this 1,000 arms, I'll try to share my screen. Because Banasur had this 1,000 arms, he had this huge energy and power that he wanted to kind of utilize in some fighting spirit. And because there was nobody nobody would be so foolish that you know somebody as being powerful and you just go and fight with them. When your power is not so much into the same category. And the same thing that Banasur says to Lord Shiva, that I'm not able to, he says, being baffled at not finding a match, I satisfy the itching of my arms by beating them against the mountains. In this way, I tear many great mountains to pieces. And the main interesting thing that I actually kind of found it very interesting was how Lord Shiva reacted to Banasur. Even though Banasur, Srila Prabhupada in the before paragraphs explains how Banasur is a great devotee of Lord Shiva, and he was very benevolent to people who were coming and all of it. And Lord Shiva also gave a word just before that he would protect Banasur from any enemies. And even in that, setting that as a context, Lord Shiva realized that his benediction had become troublesome for Banasur and addressed him. You rascal, you're very eager to fight, but since you have no one to fight with, you are distressed. Although you think that there is no one in the world to oppose you except me, I say that you will eventually find the competent person. At that time, your days will come to an end, and your flag of victory will no longer fly. Then you'll see your false prestige smashed to pieces. So what I liked in that was, we are many a times now as a parent, as I'm like, this is something that kind of was kind of in recent times in my mind, is as a parent or I mean, primarily me as a parent right now, or when we're as a leader, we find somebody who is under us, who is trying to very much please us, or who is kind of very much devoted to us. We kind of find it very difficult when it is time to correct them. We always go back to this other extreme of, either we are in this one extreme of trying to chastise them and make them correct, or we are in the other extreme of how to we are kind of in this very pleasing mushy word saying that, oh, maybe you shouldn't do that, you shouldn't do this. But in this example of Lord Shiva, he was very specific. He didn't mince with his words, and at the same time he didn't also go onto the very defensive word saying, oh, maybe you should wait for somebody or something. He was very specific. He said, he initially started the whole sentence with saying, you rascals, specifying that how much of a pride that Banasur had, and how much because of that pride. And he ends that sentence with saying, then you'll see your false prestige smashed to pieces. So that I think that's something that we can all aim to aspire to kind of come to a middle statement, especially me, if in my dealings with children or something, where that was one thing that I kind of found very interesting. And then Srila Prabhupada goes on to describe the difference between a Krishna conscious person and a non-Krishna conscious person, giving the example of Arjuna himself, and not just Arjuna. It's also the same example with Hanumanji. So as much as power that Banasur had, it's kind of also evident through the pastimes of Ramayana that Hanuman himself also had this huge power where he could literally just bring up any mountain that he wanted, which you also see. But he never utilized, just because he had this itch to show up his power, he never utilized it. And when he actually meets Mother Sita in Lanka, in the Ashokavana, Mother Sita, because he's once after Ravana comes and then he goes back, he was initially in this small form, and then he expands into this huge form, and then he goes back into his normal form. So Mother Sita actually becomes kind of perplexed. She says, oh, I'm seeing you as this small monkey, and then I'm seeing you in this huge form, but what is your actually form? And Hanuman in that pastime, he says, it is only because of Lord Ram's mercy that I can gain. If there is something that I have to accomplish for Lord Ramachandra, then I'm ready to take this huge form. And if needed, just because for the service of Lord Ramachandra, I can take the small form. But in reality, this is my usual form that I'm always there. So that's what we see. For a person who is always in Krishna conscious, where his whole aim is kind of fulfilling the desires of Guru and Krishna, then he is ready to, as Hanuman has shown, or as Arjuna has also shown, they are ready to fight and be this chivalrous. And himself, in the example of Srila Prabhupada, through the example of Juhu and many others, we see when it is needed, they were in this huge, very, very much of Kshatriya spirit. But when it was not needed, when it was not the time to actually show their spirit, it's not needed to show. And then you don't have to go and crash huge mountains just to kind of satisfy the itching of the arms. So that's one thing. And as Srila Prabhupada says, the non-Krishna conscious person utilize everything for sense gratification. And Banasur is a perfect example of such a person. For his own satisfaction, he was very eager to utilize his extraordinary power to fight. In contrast to this, Arjuna also possessed extraordinary powers for fighting, but he utilized only them for Krishna. And then, and as the story goes on, and it's also interesting nowadays, as I was sometimes drive back from temple to home, I find these places where it is kind of rage rooms, because nowadays we have so much of rage inside us that we don't know how to kind of channel that or direct it. So we have these rage rooms where people go and smash everything that they can. But that's not, I think, as we are shown, there are much better ways of how we can channel the whole passion and all that kind of that comes back into us. So, and as the story goes, then Usha has this dream of Aniruddha. Aniruddha is the son of Pradyumna. Pradyumna is the son of Lord Krishna and Mother Rukmini, and then Pradyumna's son is Aniruddha. So once Usha is the daughter of Banasur, and once in a dream she sees Aniruddha, and then she she talks to her friend who has this mystic power of bringing anybody. And then once they identify that the person in their dream was Aniruddha, they bring Aniruddha back from Dwaraka into the kingdom of Banasur, and then they start meeting and all of that. And eventually, Banasur kind of identifies that there is a man inside my daughter's palace, and then he goes on attacks and then arrests Aniruddha, and that news eventually goes back into Dwaraka. And as was in the other case, even here it was Narada Muni who took back the case, who took back this news and then gave it back to them. And as I think we are kind of running out of time, so I'll speed up the things. And there was this big battle, and Aniruddha eventually kills Banasur. And even before actually, no, Banasur is actually not killed. And there's this huge battle that becomes, and the whole Krishna's army that comes back, and then there was this huge fighting. And as Lord Shiva has given the word to Banasur, he comes there and tries to protect Banasur. And there's a beautiful description in Krishna book, and also obviously in Bhagavatam, where how Lord Shiva and Lord Krishna start fighting. There is this Shiva Jwara and Narayan Jwara, and then there are beautiful past prayers that Shiva Jwara kind of gives to Lord Krishna, prays to Lord Krishna, and eventually Lord Shiva is defeated, and then as Krishna then kills the entire army of Banasur, and Lord Shiva then himself comes and he says, "Oh my Lord, please don't kill Banasur, because he's my great devotee. So please spare him." And just because of Lord Shiva's request, Banasur is not killed. And Krishna himself also tells that because he's your great devotee, I'm not killing him, but because I wanted to lessen the burden of all these demons, so I went ahead and killed everybody else. And this is also a kind, as I was saying, Mare Krishna Rakeke, because Lord Krishna wanted to teach a lesson to Banasur, and he wanted to kind of attack him. Even Lord Shiva, who is the most powerful demigod that we have, even he along with his entire army of Kartikeya, who is the commander in chief for the demigods, even he couldn't protect Banasur. And again, Banasur was only protected just because Lord Shiva prayed for him. This we saw not only in this pastime, but also during the Govardhan Leela pastime, when Indra offended Lord Shiva and his devotees. He didn't just come. He brought Mother Kamadhenu, because he understood that if I have to go and face Lord Krishna himself, then I just cannot go, because I'm the offender here. So I need somebody who can pray for my case, and then does that. And not just in Bhagavatam, we see this also in Charitamrita, when during the whole South India pastime, when Kali Krishna Das goes and gets associated with Bhattanagaris, I guess. Then Mahaprabhu protects him, and then he says, just because now I cannot take care of him, he has to be sent away from my association. And in that instance, Lord Nityananda comes, and through his service, through his mercy, he says, okay, now because you cannot stay here, I think it is time for you to go and give the news of Lord Mahaprabhu to Mother Sachi. And through this, he was still reinstated back into the service of devotees, just because of the service, just because of the mercy of Lord Nityananda. So, as I was seeing this, the safest place is being under the shelter of devotees, as the Dasanudas. If you kind of take away from that being shelter, however, wherever we are, as long as we are safely situated under the shelter of a devotee or devotees, then that's the safest position, because we'll always be kind of corrected as Lord Shiva corrected Banasur. In this case, anytime we are getting pride or anything, we are kind of slightly deviating, we'll always have that shelter, and we'll always be able to come back. That can be our that can be our pole star. And I just wanted to discuss about other demons also, but not because for the lack of time, I'll just quickly go about Mura is, as it also explains about Mura, Mura is one of the chief warriors in the army of Narakasur. And then, as we know, Narakasur is the son of Mother Bhumi, that she begot uh, during the incarnation of Varahadev. And just because of bad association, he becomes into a demon. And then one of his chief warriors was Mura. And then, as Lord Krishna, before he attacked Narakasuri, he first of all kills Mura. And from there, this is the Mura demon from where Lord Krishna got the name Murari, the enemy of demon Mura, who is Murari. The next story is of Dvivida. As Maharaj was also explaining yesterday in his class, Dvivida is one of the ministers of Sugriva, and just because of the offense that he performed at the lotus feet of Lakshmana, he got into bad association. And as we know, it's also interesting that unlike the other demons who directly wanted, when their friends were killed, who directly wanted to attack Krishna, Dvivida was slightly interesting. Rather than attacking Krishna, what he actually did was he went ahead and started creating troubles by creating these floods or taking people away from the residential palaces and then keeping them into the caves. So he didn't directly attack, but it's in a much more heinous way of creating trouble for our Krishna. And then as the translation says, whereas in the other cases it was Krishna who killed, but in the case of Dvivida, it was Balaram who went ahead and killed him. There's this, again, a beautiful description. All of these descriptions are kind of in Krishna book. So please, when you get a time, please go ahead and kind of also read through them. And Dvivida, during the whole fighting, Dvivida, he had this huge power. So he was just plucking trees that are available in the forest. And it said that Balram actually didn't kill him for long, because Dvivida was just plucking up of the trees, and then in a way that he actually emptied the whole forest from trees, because that's how many trees that he was trying to pluck and then throwing onto Balaram. But Balaram was smashing everything, and then once everything was done, he eventually killed Dvivida. And Dantavakra is again the third iteration of Jaya and Vijaya. Jaya was Shishupal, who was already killed in the previous pastimes, and then Dantavakra, just because he wanted to avenge. And one thing was Dantavakra when he was talking to Lord Krishna, he says that I want to show my gratitude to my friends just by killing you. So as we see, there are various ways that we can actually demonstrate our gratitude to somebody, either just because of the benefit that we got from somebody, either we can go ahead and kill or attack somebody who does something wrong to them, or there are much more constructive ways that we can also be grateful of, and try not following Dantavakra, but in a much better way of showing gratitude. So let us not consider that Dantavakra is a bad example of taking revenge, was kind of showing gratitude for him. In the case of Balvala, so again, Dantavakra was killed by Lord Krishna. Balvala was somebody who Lord Balram kills, and that happens. So just before Balvala, I'll just take 2 minutes to discuss something about Roma Harshana Sutta. So in the whole example of Roma Harshana Sutta, once everything happened, Lord Balram comes into the assembly and Roma Harshana Sutta was killed. One of the striking points there was when the whole sages stand up and say, oh Lord Balaram, I think what you did is, even though you could do it, but I think it doesn't set a good example. Lord Balaram actually didn't go back, and he didn't say that, oh, I'm the Supreme Personality of Godhead, there's nothing that can stop me from doing that. He acknowledges the statements of the sages that they say. I'll see if I can quickly. Yeah, so I'll quickly share my screen. So the Lord replied, yes, I must atone for this action. which may have been proper for me, but is improper for others. Therefore, I think it is my duty to execute a suitable act of atonement enjoined in the authorized scriptures. So, Lord Balram didn't go back into this defensive mode or in an authoritarian mode, but he said, just he understood the context of what the Brahmanas and the sages were telling, and he acknowledged their statement. So that's also a good example that Lord Balram is showing there, irrespective of what situation that we are in. It's good that we keep open ears and try to hear what the other persons are saying and try to acknowledge that sentence, whatever they are saying. And he even though it is not needed for him, as in his own words, even though it is proper for him of killing Romash and Sutta because he is Supreme Personality of Godhead, it is not proper that we cannot consider ourselves in the situation of Lord Balram. Just to set that example, he asks the sages how can he atone in this case, and when the sages say that they are being affected by this demon Balvala. I'm sorry. So in that, in the next example, in the next chapter, that we see how Lord Balram went and killed Balvala. So those were some of the points that were in my mind. If you have any questions, I'm happy to take them.
Hare Krishna, Haridhvani Prabhuji. Please accept my humble
Prabhu.
obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. We are very fortunate to have somebody like you in our community. Welcome, and very wonderful, talk you gave today morning, particularly the comparison of Rakhi Krishna Mareki, that particular thing which is so popular. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. There is a comment from Kalpadar Mataji in the chat.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah. Thank you, Prabhu. So it was a nice class. I mean, the time is short. I understand too many things to cover. I was thinking there is no purport, so yeah, you chose from Bhagavatam in the Krishna book the thing. So I was just thinking 2 points, Prabhu. One is actually about when Pradyumna came. I mean, he was giving, Krishna knows, right? But then he was giving the credit to, Narada Muni. So, how, the Lord always, of course, he is aware of everything, right?
Yeah.
But many times, he gives the credit, right? Even the battlefield of Kurukshetra, he gave the credit to Arjuna completely, right?
Yeah.
So he showed everything that has been taken. But then, but only thing, if in the other case, if one is proud, the Banasra's case, so he was even trying to, use his, he was not getting exact opponent, right, to fight with him.
Yeah.
So he was even trying to ask Lord Shiva to fight with him. He was just trying to misuse those kind of powers, right? So he was not able to keep with himself. So of course, at the end, so everything is temporary. It is going to end sometime, right? Whatever quality, these great powers one may have. But then, of course, the Lord, did in a way. Of course, we were hearing that in last few days as well about Banas, because last time, I think during the Chinese class, Maharaj was talking about the same pastime. So on Monday, last Monday. So not Monday, I think a previous Wednesday, yeah. So
I think also Sukadeva Goswami states in the end of the chapter saying that sometimes we have this understanding that fighting is inauspicious, but he writes that this fighting between Lord Shiva and Lord Krishna is very auspicious, and whoever hears this will not have any trouble, with the right understanding, obviously. So
thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhu. If you don't have any questions, then I think we can end.
One point, Prabhuji. In today's story, we saw that the Lord was fighting with Lord Shiva, but there are other stories like Mohini and other ones where the Lord and Shiva are actually, Lord Shiva are actually working together in harmony also. So
yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Yeah, that's a nice point, Prabhu. If no other comments by other devotees, maybe we can end. Okay. We'll end, Prabhu?
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Prabhu.
Yeah, Hare Krishna.